Hi, our program today is entitled From the White House to the Kitchen, and it's Anna and Jeffrey Garten's amazing life. I expect your first question is, who is Anna Garten? Many of you will know if, like me, you're a Food Network sort of aholic, I guess. But you might not know who Jeffrey Garten is. She's very quiet. She's very private, this Anna Garten. And so to peel through the layers to find out about him, it actually, it probably covers about 60 years to see who he is and what he is. I'm sure that many of you do watch Food Network and Home and Garden Network and some of the other shows of that kind. And if you do, then very likely you've watched Anna Garten. Her television programs are really phenomenal. They have been given many awards. Her quality of presenting things is precious, really. And so she's good. I doubt, though, that many of you have read his books, Jeffrey Garten's books. He's a professional in international investments. Very handy for her as her life went forward. She's best known for her cookbooks. You see a number of them here. I wonder if you have any of them. I have 3, which I love. My favorite one is this one. It's called Barefoot in Paris. And it's special to me for a couple of different reasons. One, it's, I think, her best all-around cookbook. 2, she has some fabulous French dishes that even I can cook. And so this one is important to me. She has published altogether 13 cookbooks. That's a very large number of cookbooks to be able to publish. And that's to date. We don't know what else she might do. She says that it takes her about 2 years to develop the recipes that she's going to put into her book and also to design the book. She is a designer as well as just a good cook. She's involved in every detail of production of these books. The common elements for each one of her cookbooks is that they're going to be very simple dishes. They're going to be always delicious dishes. And they're also going to be comforting in one way or another. They're easy to make, trust me. They're easy to make, no matter how experienced or inexperienced the cook happens to be. I wonder if you haven't actually cooked any of her dishes. Have you ever had a chance to taste any of them? You would remember if you did. The question, though, really is, what is Anna Garten really like? What's behind that gorgeous smile of hers and her impressive and seemingly unstoppable will to succeed? Who is Anna Garten? If you think that all there is to Anna Garten is that she happens to be a good cook, she happens to have a nice television show, she happens to have a few nice cookbooks, but that's it, you'd be dead wrong. There's a lot more to her than just that. As is always the case with celebrities who guard their privacy jealously, she does and has for years. We've been able to get little snippets about her. She has comments in her cookbooks besides some of the recipes that give you a little window on her life. In the cooking show, both of them, her Food Network Barefoot Contessa and also her Food Network Be My Guest, in those she's conversational and you pick up a little bit more about it. And then on occasion, when she agrees to be interviewed, she will give a little bit more. But there really has never been a complete look at Anna Garten. She's never allowed it, and we've never seen it. What's a problem, though, is that others have tried to create what Anna Garten is like. They try to fill in the blanks where they don't know, and they've tried to make her something that she definitely is not. She has great philosophy about life. I love this one. She says, many of life's problems can be solved with a good cookie. She's right. She's absolutely right. It wasn't until 2024 that she published her own life story. It's called Anna Garten, a memoir, Be Ready When the Luck Happens. It's an eminently readable memoir. It reads easily. It's very informative. It's very entertaining. And for those of us who do cook, it has a few of her recipes kind of sprinkled in there. Parts of it will make you laugh out loud. Parts of it will make you catch your breath at the raw honesty. Throughout the entire book, she not only tells her story, she tells Jeffrey's story, her husband. It was published in October of 2024 by Crown Publications. It took her 4 years to write it. At first, she was encouraged to write it, but she kept saying, no one's going to be interested in my life. Later, she was told that someone would tell her story if she didn't, and that got her attention. Back in 2010, 14 years earlier, she was having dinner with director Rob Marshall, who happened to tell her about a time when he was working with Liza Minnelli. And Liza Minnelli and he were discussing, is it luck when you become successful, or is it because of hard work? And they had decided it really was a combination of both. And Liza had told him, be ready when the luck happens. And Anna picked that for her title. Throughout this, I'm going to give you a little bit of cooking trivia as a little addition for your day. This one reads, the first recorded cookbook that is still in print today is of culinary matters, written by Apicius in the 4th century AD Rome. It contains more than 500 recipes, including many with Indian spices. It's easy to say that Anna's childhood was challenging. She goes into great detail in her memoir about that childhood. Her parents immigrated to the United States from Russia. The family was Jewish, and her two parents actually met when they were counselors at a summer camp. Anna Rosenberg was born in New York and reared in Stamford, Connecticut. She had one sibling, an older brother named Ken. In 2024, in September, Anna gave an interview to People magazine, and she said this, I grew up in a family that wasn't a happy family. So I couldn't understand why people had kids. Nobody had any fun in my family. Now I understand it, but at the time when I was 25 and 30, I just didn't. Having children, was nothing I really wanted to do. One of the most interesting things to me about this is that it's very difficult to find much information about Anna's parents. This is a photograph showing when she graduated with her mother and her father, and it was the only photograph that I could find that showed both parents together. Her parents were Charles and Florence Rosenberg. In 2024, in that same interview, Anna said this, I was terrified. I was physically afraid of my dad. I literally remember thinking he would kill me if I did something. I was physically afraid of him, and my mother just was unsupportive. Take a look at the parents a little closer. Father, Dr. Charles H. Rosenberg. He was a very successful ear, nose, throat surgeon. He, though, was subject to really vicious temper tantrums with violent outbursts that badly frightened not only his daughter but also his son. And he did, on occasion, according to Anna in her book, physically hit her, and he would drag her about by her hair. in September 2024 in an article written by Anna Calderon. This is said, quote, Garten made peace with her father later in life, but never reconciled with her mother. He, in his own way, acknowledged it, and my mother never acknowledged it, she says. Mom was Florence Rich Rosenberg. She was a professional dietitian, so food was very much her focus. She was an excellent cook, but she didn't like cooking. She was an intellectual who was far more interested in opera than she was in baking. She discouraged her daughter from doing cooking or any kitchen chores whatsoever, but she did encourage her to focus on her academic studies. Anna describes her as being emotionally detached from the rest of the family. She said, Anna, in an article in New Yorker in 2024, Anna said her mother was, quote, obsessed with what she ate. It was all about nutrition rather than pleasure. My mother didn't understand pleasure. She did not, as a rule, serve carbohydrates or dessert, and after my father had a heart attack in his 40s, cholesterol was forbidden, including cream for coffee. Skim milk, you might as well pour water in your coffee. Anna also describes her school lunches that her mother would pack for her every day, and she said no sane child would agree to swap food with her. Anna's lunch would include a sardine sandwich, maybe, tuna without mayonnaise, maybe, or a handful of raw carrots. Anna wanted what her schoolmates had, a nice, big, thick peanut butter and jelly sandwich. For a snack, her mother always gave her an apple. Anna's childhood was marked by loneliness. She and her brother were not close. She said, quote, we were raised as if we were only children, with little interaction between us. Dinner time was bland and abstemious. Plain broiled chicken or fish, steamed broccoli, canned peas and carrots, and then questions like, what did you accomplish today? She did have some happy family memories, though, in her childhood, but they were because of her father's parents, her paternal grandparents, Morris and Bessie Rosenberg. They immigrated to America from Russia and Poland, and they only spoke Yiddish. Anna remembers them with love. She said, quote, Bessie was always cooking, and like all good cooks, she was happiest when she was feeding people. Her steaming pots were filled with traditional Jewish dishes that were probably overcooked and underseasoned, but simple and delicious. Turns out Anna was very good with science. That was her strongest academic subject. She won first prize at the citywide science fair 2 years in a row. The miracle is that she wanted to set up an experiment involving mice. And her mother agreed if she kept them in the basement that she could have the mice and handle the experiment. Well, she did, and everything went well except the mice escaped, and there was a little trauma in the household until they could all be recaptured. But her work was rock solid, and winning a citywide science fair is a big deal. In her memoir, she says, I loved the process of coming up with an idea for an experiment and testing my hypothesis. I liked it when anything could happen, when I didn't know the results before I started. Surprises were what made science fun. That is the key to what made Anna Garten's life so fun. Her favorite subject was science, but she also enjoyed subjects that dealt with design and architecture. Architecture was a particular favorite of hers. Other girls in her class scurried off to take home economics classes. She'd never been in the kitchen. She'd never been allowed to cook. She scurried off almost solo with the guys to take drafting classes, and she learned to make highly technical drawings. This was key to her success later in her career. She was always interested in building things, always interested in doing renovations, redos. As an adult, she's done both and done them very, very well. Time for another cooking trivia. The first cookbook authored by an African American was a domestic cookbook containing a careful selection of receipts from the kitchen. It was written by Mrs. Melinda Russell and published in 1866. She came from a family of freed slaves, and her experience as a cook, no doubt, came from that family background. After Anna graduated from Stanford High School, she went to Syracuse University. She went to study economics. She wanted to study architecture, but economics it was. That would make a better living for her, said her mother. She was also dating, when she went to Syracuse, a boy who was 2 years older than she was. He was a student at Dartmouth. How they got together is a totally magical tale. I'm going to start with these two pictures. These were taken 12 years before they met each other. Jeffrey is to the left. Anna is obviously to the right. They were taken in 1953. They're almost cherubic looking, although Jeffrey has a little more determined look on his face, perhaps, than Anna does. He was at Dartmouth, as I said. In 1963, Anna happened to go to Dartmouth with her parents to visit her brother Ken, who was studying to become a physician, just like their father. Jeffrey was studying in the library at Dartmouth, and he looked out the window and he saw Anna walking across the green. Nearly 60 years later, Jeffrey insists that it was love at first sight. The fellow he was studying with recognized Anna and mentioned to Jeffrey that she was his date for that evening. The next day, Jeffrey asked his study partner how the date went. When he was told it was just okay, Jeffrey got her address, and he wrote her a letter. And this is the first letter that he wrote to Anna. This would begin a correspondence between them that exists even today, and she has saved every letter. His first letter reads, "Anna, I have the impression that Roger's attempt to get me a date with you affected you the wrong way. If you felt that he was trying to, quote, pass you off, close quote, you could not be more mistaken. Truth is, I saw you, but we were never introduced, unfortunately, when you were up here this fall. If the idea of dating a Jewish freshman from Florida whom you have never seen doesn't repel you, how about dropping me a note and we would work something out? If you're not at all interested, don't even waste the stationery. Jeffrey." He sent that letter with a photograph to her, and several months later, after a little exchange in writing, they had their first date in New York. She was strongly attracted to Jeffrey then, and still is. They dated for 5 years and then married against her mother's wishes. Jeffrey had graduated, but Anna still had 2 years of college left, and her mother wasn't sure that Jeffrey was going to be able to make anything of himself. Here are some wedding pictures. The joy in their faces, I think, is a delight for all of us to see. She picked out her own wedding dress. Her mother would not go with her to pick it out. She picked it out. She said she wanted to look like the Snow Queen, and in a way she does. She has fur around the shoulders, and it's an empire or empire sort of dress. And they have a magnificent cake. The only problem that really presented itself as a wall was what Jeffrey would wear to the wedding. He was in the military, and so he planned to wear his uniform. Anna's mother was shocked and threatened to refuse to sign the marriage license if he did such a thing. Geoffrey quietly but sternly stood up to her, explaining, as Anna says in the book, explaining to her that he was not a civilian. He was in the military and he was proud to serve his country, so of course he would wear his uniform. The two also didn't have a lot of money. Remember, she's in school, he's in school. So they decided on just plain gold wedding bands, which she says in her book they wore for a couple of years and then decided they didn't even need those. And so they don't wear traditional wedding bands as many in their generation did. This is the picture on December 22nd, 1968, where they are officially Mr. and Mrs. Geoffrey Garten. And the joy, again, comes across to me. It's a beautiful thing. They left a very snowy evening. They were married in Anna's home. Snow was falling. The home apparently is a very beautiful architectural home with lots of glass, so as they're married, they can see the snow coming down outside. But that didn't stop them. They were ready to get away. They had friends drive them into New York City, where they spent their first night together as man and wife at the Plaza Hotel, and then the next day they flew to the Bahamas. That was a gift from his parents for them for their wedding. Geoffrey had joined ROTC when he was in college, and he had Army responsibilities to fulfill. And so in their life, the couple bounced around a lot. They went to North Carolina, they went to Colorado. They were separated for long stretches of time. Geoffrey even spent a year in Thailand, while Anna stayed behind and finished her degree. Geoffrey was a paratrooper and a Green Beret. He earned his chops in the military. Those early travels allowed Anna to see the world, something beyond Stamford, Connecticut. She was barely in her 20s, and she traveled alone to Belgium, to Tokyo, to Bangkok, and it helped build for her a worldly confidence she didn't have as a child in her childhood. She was basically very self-conscious. She was not comfortable in her own skin because she had grown up in a family that basically kept hammering home, you must make something of yourself, and everything that she thought she would want to do, one or the other of the parents would say, that won't work, you can't do that. One thing back on their honeymoon, some of you will identify with this. Certainly my husband and I identify with this. The airline lost their luggage. And so they're in the Bahamas in December with no summer clothes. They only have what they wore out of New York, which was warm winter clothes. It was an adventure. You'll enjoy it when you read the memoir. Were they in love? You bet. These are two quotes that Anna gave 2 years apart that I think you'll enjoy. In 2018, she told Today Food, I have to say, I just knew he was the one. He's kind, he's smart, he's funny, and he takes very good care of me. It's wonderful. And 2 years before that, she told Vanity Fair, my greatest regret in life is not marrying Geoffrey sooner. A bit of trivia. Studies show that baking and cooking helps relieve stress. It's often suggested as an activity to help with anxiety and depression. Experts say the soothing act of cooking helps boost confidence and keeps thoughts focused to ultimately avoid negative self-talk. During their engagement, Geoffrey wrote Anna another letter, and I've included it because I think it's interesting because it sort of foretells their future. He writes, here are my plans, dreams. We go to Paris once, at least, in the next 5 years. We won't have much money, but that will be all the fun. Maybe we could go camping, but instead of touring the Louvre, I'd like to get up at 4 a.m. and walk the streets, down the Champs-Élysées while the sun comes up, around the markets, along the Seine. That's us, not the fancy restaurants. Next time we go, we'll just live in some small apartment for about 2 weeks. Next time, I'm older, but you're not. Next time, maybe we'll have some money, and then we'll want to do only the things we did when we didn't have any. I'm so excited about this idea. You're going to make my whole life so exciting. And he has. His military career was over at the end of April 1971. They've been through the military part. She's gotten her degree. Things are going pretty well, but he has a deferred enrollment at Johns Hopkins School of Advanced International Studies. He's accepted, but the enrollment had to be deferred while he completed his military service. So, what to do with a completely free summer? For these two, the answer was obvious. They decided to spend the summer in Europe, living on a budget of $5 a day. There was a book that was just out that said Europe on $5 a day. They bought the book and decided they could do it. They bought a car in Europe. It was on a purchase buyback plan, which meant they bought it, they used it, and then they sold it before they came back to America. They also bought what she describes in her memoir as the most hideously orange day-glow tent you've ever seen, and a little tiny camp stove. They loved every minute of their 4-month camping trip, especially Paris, and vowed to return someday when they did have money. She mentions in the memoir a number of places that were particularly impressive to her, and they're all based on foods that she discovers for the first time with Jeffrey in these places. The places that she suggested as wonderful were Paris, number one, but also she enjoyed Amsterdam, she enjoyed Scotland, she enjoyed Dover, Belgium, Normandy, Provence, the Côte d'Azur. Monte Carlo was fascinating to her, Milan, Switzerland. The young couple, refreshed by their summer abroad and a summer when they are without parents, they are without responsibilities except to each other, and which they are enjoying being together, really together, for perhaps the first time in their marriage. They, though, had to return to Washington, D.C., where Jeffrey could begin his graduate studies, and Anna began working for the government. Pretty heady stuff, what they were doing, Anna especially. They settled into a traditional marriage that worked for them for a while. Jeffrey was in grad school. Anna was working for both the Gerald Ford administrations and the Jimmy Carter administrations as a White House budget analyst in the Office of Management and Budget. She helped write the nuclear energy budget. At night and on weekends, she was teaching herself how to cook, and they threw weekly dinner parties on the weekends. She loved to entertain. Jeffrey loved to entertain. She loved Julia Child, and she loved to entertain in Child style. But Anna was bored. She said in an interview in 1981 to the New York Times, quote, "My job in Washington was intellectually exciting and stimulating, but it wasn't me at all. I was sitting at my desk in Washington trying to figure out what I was going to do when I grew up, and I came across an ad for this business for sale in West Hampton. I drove up that weekend, looked it over, and said, I'd take it." The arrow points to West Hampton Beach, which is actually where her little business was that she bought. This is known, this whole area, as the Hamptons, and it is a very exclusive area above New York. It's New York City. It's upper scale, upper crust, and the beach vibe draws people. The company that she bought, her mother referred to as a grocery store, 1978, Before there was an empire, there was a grocery store with an intriguing name, the Barefoot Contessa. And you can see from the picture here, it's a very simple looking store. It's right on the beach. Cheeses, it says, bread, salads, French pastries, coffees, and catering. So it's a little bit of everything. She bought that store with Jeffrey for $20,000. The asking price was $25,000, and she was not sure she could do this, so Jeffrey said, let's just offer him $20,000, and that'll give you some time to figure out if this is something you really want to do. So they made that offer on a Saturday, and the following Monday morning, she's at her desk in D.C., and she gets a call. The owner has accepted the $20,000. Her parents were absolutely horrified. Here's this professional woman walking away from her professional career at the White House, for heaven's sakes, becoming a shopkeeper of a grocery store, like her grandfather, whom she loved, who had opened a candy store when he arrived in America from Russia. The store's name, the Barefoot Contessa, had been named by the previous owner in honor of a very successful movie by the same name. Jim and I have seen this movie. It starred Humphrey Bogart and Ava Gardner. Came out in 1953. Quite an interesting movie. Quite early for this kind of interesting movie. Jeffrey encouraged her to come, just go ahead, buy it, you can do it. And she was pretty nervous. But he said, as she said in a quote to Sam Sifton, Jeffrey said, if you love it, you'll be really good at it. And that's the best advice anybody ever gave me. She loved it. She loved it. It was a whole new world for her. Not only was she now in the kitchen, but she was cooking, and she was running a business, and she was figuring out how to do catering. It was all brand new. That same interview with Sam Sifton to the New York Times, she said, honestly, the first month I was there, I thought, this is the stupidest thing I've ever done in my life. I'd never been in the food business. I didn't know how to do anything. But Jeffrey said, if you could do it in the first week, you'd be bored by the second week. He was right. He knew his wife very well. This is a charming picture of her, very young, the new businesswoman, standing in front of an array of different foods that she's offering at the Barefoot Contessa. She discovered that she loved hard work, which was a good thing because owning and operating Barefoot Contessa only during the summer months was really hard work. For one thing, she had to bake 1,000 baguettes a day all summer to keep the supplies. She slowly added catering to her offerings with good success, and there are a number of hilarious stories in here of successes and failures that she had to quickly turn into a success when nothing was working. She discovered from the previous owner, who stayed with her, by the way, for the first month that she owned it so she could teach her the ropes, she discovered that every Wednesday morning at 4 a.m., she would have to drive a rented station wagon into the city and buy supplies from all the specialty food stores there to bring back to her specialty food store. She would buy imported cheeses, specialty nuts, smoked fish, smoked meats, caviar, and then on her way back, she would go to a large grocery store and buy all the flour, sugar, eggs, and butter that she would need for the store for the coming week. It was exhausting. She says in her memoir, when I bought Barefoot Contessa, I shattered our traditional roles. What she's talking about are the traditional husband and wife roles. You see, he's got a big, important job. She has a business and a big, important job as the sole proprietor. They're living in two different places. He comes to visit her on the weekends, which at the beach are the busiest times, so she couldn't really pay much attention to him. She says, I shattered the traditional roles, took a baseball bat to them, and left them in pieces. While I was still cooking, cleaning, shopping, managing at the store, this time I was doing it as a businesswoman, not the wife. I just couldn't live with him in a traditional man and wife role. Jeffrey hadn't done anything wrong. He was just doing what every man before him had done. But we were living in a new era, and that behavior wasn't okay with me anymore. I had changed. And she continues in her memoir, Jeffrey was fully formed and living the life he wanted to live. I wasn't. And I wouldn't be able to figure out who I was or what I wanted unless I was on my own. I needed that freedom. When you realize the kind of childhood she grew up in, where her talents were suppressed for so long, the drive, the need to be a success herself, to prove to herself that she was worthy, is really the impetus behind all this. The two talked about the situation, and they decided to separate, and they separated for 6 weeks, each considering what he really wanted in the marriage. For Anna, it was a full-blown career proving that she could be successful on her own. For Jeffrey, it was a marriage that featured two highly ambitious people successfully navigating a non-traditional marriage that was perfect for them both. Both of them have admitted, when they talked about it, that the separation truly strengthened their marriage, in many ways saved their marriage. In her memoir, when Anna's talking about that separation and the fact that it helped them to grow and it helped them to clarify what they each wanted in marriage, she wrote, I think you marry someone who thinks you're just the most important thing in the world, and you think he's the most important thing in the world. It certainly worked for them. Anna kept the Barefoot Contessa store for 18 years. That's a long run. It was certainly more than what her mother envisioned, a grocery store. And it had a wonderful reputation for what she could do. The catering, the parties that she could do, the recipes that she developed specifically for her customers there in the Hamptons. That was all really groundwork. She was learning her craft. After she sold the store, she had to figure out what she was going to do next. She says in her memoir, quote, that was the worst year of my life. You had to prepare yourself to be alone, and I had nothing to do. I was just by myself in an office. Well, with that time, she thought about, maybe I ought to write a cookbook. Others were doing it. Maybe she would do it. And that led to a book deal, which led to this one, which is the Barefoot Contessa cookbook. It's the only one of her 13 cookbooks that has the Barefoot Contessa in the title. All the rest of them just have Barefoot Contessa. That's because this is paying homage to her store, the Barefoot Contessa, and it's her starting. In her memoir, she writes, at the time, best-selling cookbooks were Bibles that had hundreds of recipes, how to cook everything, and 0 photographs. Instead, Barefoot had 75 recipes and full-color photographs. It was a hit. Women and men liked to see what the dish she was telling them how to make would look like. And of course, not only did she show you how it looked, she showed you in a beautiful way to present it simply, but pretty, so that the food shone as it should. The Barefoot Contessa cookbook sold well beyond what Anna and Jeffrey had anticipated. And suddenly she found herself with significant extra money in hand. So she went to her favorite investment banker, Jeffrey, and asked him how she should invest that money. He didn't hesitate. He said, you need to do what you've always wanted to do, buy an apartment in Paris. The only stipulation he had, smart man, Anna would find it, he would, look at it, but she would be the one who did the footwork to find the place. Then once they had it, then she would renovate it and she would decorate it. And only then would he come and see it. He didn't want any part of that decorating business. In 2000, they bought it. And for them, Paris was home, sweet home. The apartment was exactly what they'd been hoping for. She had looked for over a year, trying to find something that was just right. And of course, she's dealing with language. She has some French. She said enough to keep her from, getting put in jail. But she doesn't have the high level of French that would be required for business negotiations. She gets a good realtor in France, in Paris, and they worked together and eventually found what was really for them a perfect spot. She slowly renovated it over about a year and a half. And when the space directly above their apartment became available because of a broken water pipe that had spilled water into their apartment, and then the owner above was going to have to pay an outrageous sum to clean up their apartment, Anna just offered to buy his as is, and he agreed, and so they got the extra space, which became Jeffrey's office, a lovely space. Anna says that every time they arrive in Paris, even today, 25 years later, she feels just as lucky to be in Paris as she did on their first camping trip there. First thing that she did, of course, was redo her kitchen. She wanted a particular stove, a very grand stove, had that put in, had all kinds of things put where she wanted them, how she wanted them, so that she could cook and entertain in Paris. She loved shopping in the French markets. The apartment happened to be very well located near her favorite bakery in Paris, her favorite cheese shop in Paris, and also just a little ways away, her favorite flower shop. So she would get up in the morning, go and pick the things that she wanted to serve for dinner that evening for guests, and get the floral arrangement, and then host the dinner party that evening. She and Jeffrey would. They loved that. In 2002, she also spread her wings by buying the East Hampton store. This is going to be the next iteration of the Barefoot Contessa. It's 10 times larger than her beachfront store had been. She redesigned it to create the same warm, welcoming space that the original shop had been, but just more of it. And for her, finally, no more Wednesday all-day drives in a rented station wagon to buy supplies. With the new store and all that space, Anna's creativity hit high gear. She built a commercial kitchen in the back so that she could do catering out of it. And she had the thought of running the exhaust fence from the bakery out into the side of the building and therefore into the street. And so the scent of baking bread every day drifted into the street, luring those poor customers in to buy. She had also, during this time, done some appearances on Martha Stewart's television show. And in 2002, she gets her own show on Food Network, Barefoot Contessa. That show ran for 29 seasons and didn't end until 2021. Having her own show presented a special set of challenges for both husband and wife because the filming for the first series was done in their home kitchen. And the shoot setup would start at 6 o'clock in the morning and the shoot would run till about 10 o'clock at night. Every scene had to be shot 3 times and then Food Network would pick which of the 3 they liked the best. One of the early issues, besides the fact that it was a little bit crowded for Jeffrey and Anna to have a television program being shot in their own kitchen, was the issue of vision. Food Network's vision for her show and Ina's vision for her show. The director kept telling her to do scenes a certain way, and Ina kept saying, I want to do it this way. In her memoir, she describes it, quote, all day long I would say to the director, no, that's the way Martha Stewart does it. You already have Martha. You want me to do it the way I do it, which is simpler and more casual. I have no idea how I knew that or how I had the temerity to tell the director, but I knew anything else would be wrong. A bit more cooking trivia. The first electric stove cooking demonstration was staged in 1895. Le Cordon Bleu began as a magazine before it became a world-renowned cooking school. To promote the magazine and the launch of the school, the company staged a cooking demonstration. It was the first one ever to use an electric stove, an innovation of the time that ultimately made cooking easier for restaurant chefs and home cooks. Today, Jeffrey and Ina have been married nearly 60 years, and they are still madly in love. These are two very successful professional people who have had careers beyond the belief either of them had at the beginning. They have done well. Let's take a little closer look at Jeffrey's career path. You know about Ina and her cooking, but let's look at him. He had his military service first, and he was encouraged to make the military a career, but he had already made the determination that he wanted to work in banking, investment banking. He served on the White House Council on International Economic Policy. He was an investment banker in New York City for Lehman Brothers and later for them in Tokyo and Hong Kong. He was the Undersecretary of Commerce for International Trade for the Clinton White House, Dean Emeritus and Juan Trippi Professor in the Practice Emeritus of International Trade, Finance, and Business at Yale, which is the title he holds today. While he was doing all that, he also taught business and foreign policy classes at Columbia, at New York University, and at Yale. He wrote for the New York Times and Business Week and also wrote a number of important books in his field. He holds a bachelor's from Dartmouth and from Johns Hopkins School of Advanced International Studies. He has the master's, which he earned in '72, and the PhD, which he earned in '80. Quite a stellar career. Ina's career path. This is really more a listing of her honors, the things that she's received as a result of her work. She's won 7 Daytime Emmy Awards for Outstanding Culinary Show Host. She received multiple James Beard Foundation awards, including a James Beard Foundation Media Award in 2018. In 2015, she was honored with the Outstanding Host Award for her exceptional work on the Food Network show Barefoot Contessa. She was recognized in 2021 by Forbes as one of their Forbes 50 over 50. And the stunner to me, she has sold over 14 million cookbooks to date. Their home library is the second most important room in their home, second only to the kitchen. Both of them love books and are successful writers in their chosen fields. As Ina's careers have evolved, so have her husband's. Although the marriage is unconventional, it's worked for them beautifully. Each has had the freedom and time to develop a career and enjoy personal and professional success, and their careers were both outstanding, complementary, and rewarding. They have one rule. The rule is work like the dickens when you're at your job, wherever it is, but when we come together, leave that outside, and it has worked perfectly for them. In her memoir, she says, I'm an adrenaline junkie. I give myself a project that I think there's no way in hell I'm going to be able to do, and then I do it. And when it's over, I'm like, that worked out really well. I like having an impossible problem to solve. I like the challenge of trying to figure something out. This is a picture of Anna at home, and it's her barn/home that she designed and built in East Hampton to make space for both her work and for their leisure time. You see, she couldn't keep making Jeffrey stay upstairs for all the time that the kitchen was being used to film the network series. So she built a barn on land right next to where their home was, and it became her studio. It also became her favorite entertaining space, and she has given memorable parties there. In House Beautiful, Joanna Saltz, who was doing a beautiful story in 2024 on Anna, said, quote, "Over the course of her life, Anna's renovated more than a dozen properties, including but not limited to a Soho loft, a row house in Washington, D.C., a Parisian apartment. That was the scariest thing ever, just insane," Anna says. 2 massive retail spaces, a barn, and 2 houses in the Hamptons. This is her home today. Not easy to get pictures of it either, by the way. She and Jeffrey guard their privacy very closely. In 2015, she was named to Time's list of 100 most influential people. And Jeffrey was very, very proud of her. They went to the ceremony, and things were really on a positive note. But a worldwide pandemic changes everything. Suddenly, Anna's crew couldn't come in and work with her. She had to figure out a way how to film the show herself with no crew present. It was enormously difficult. I mean, suddenly she's the set designer, she's the on-air talent, she's the writer, she's lighting, she's everything. Enormously difficult, but she also found it enormously satisfying. She loved that challenge. It was like those science fair projects back in her youth. She didn't know how it was going to turn out, but the surprise was what made it worthwhile. Ironically, at the time the COVID pandemic started bubbling up, Jeffrey was teaching a course at Yale entitled Managing Global Catastrophes. In April 2020, now she's locked in, everybody's locked in. This is during the period when no one could go anywhere. And she is learning to use social media in ways she never has before. She gets into Instagram, for example. And her real breakthrough in social media came with the pandemic when one morning she decided, the heck with this whole thing, she needed a drink. So she filmed herself making an enormous drink at 9 o'clock in the morning. And she tells her fans, it's always cocktail hour in a crisis. They loved it. She also, at the same time, is working on a cookbook that's coming out. It's going to be called Modern Comfort Food. And she says this about it: 2 years ago, I thought there's going to be an election a month after this book comes out, and everyone, no matter who you're voting for, is going to be stressed out. I had no idea the layers of stress we would be dealing with now, referring to the pandemic. Either I'm a genius or I'm really lucky, and I'm sure it's the latter. It was the right thing at the right time. In 2022, she realized that one of the things that she enjoyed the most was actually interviewing other people, not being interviewed herself. And so she worked with Food Network to create another program, and it was called Be My Guest. In 2022, Taylor Swift appeared as Anna's guest on her show, Be My Guest, on the Food Network. The show began in 2022, and it featured guests who would come and cook in the kitchen in Anna's East Hampton barn. and Anna would kind of serve as their sous chef. When Taylor Swift was on, the two of them cooked pavlova together. And they also enjoyed several whiskey sours and had a pretty riveting conversation about the different whiskeys. Swift admitted that she absolutely loved Anna's meatballs and spaghetti and made it often. Taylor said in October of that year, "I've been lucky enough to meet Anna a few times and get to know the magnificent woman behind the TV show and the cookbooks. Anna is one of those people who is better, funnier, warmer than you'd hoped her to be." In 2024, the memoir comes out, and in a statement released by one of her producers, Anna says, "By finding a way to do what I love for a living, cooking, I've been fortunate enough to build a career that has not only been incredibly rewarding, but has brought people together through the power of home cooking. I hope my book will inspire readers to find their own unique story." She went through an interesting process when she finally decided, okay, if she didn't write about her life, somebody else would, and it would be wrong. The process she describes in the memoir. She says, "The first thing I did was I went through the box of all of Jeffrey's letters that he had written to her over 50 years. She'd saved every one. She reread them, and she realized quickly they really were a diary of their life together and of their careers. She then took a series of trips to go back to the homes where they had lived, and some of that was very positive, some of it was very poignant, but it was important because she especially needed to be in D.C. to remember her career there before the Barefoot Contessa. Joanna Saltz, in the interview or in the article in House Beautiful in 2024, wrote this: "She turned that Barefoot Contessa everyone is welcome concept into one of the highest grossing cookbook collections ever published and a massively successful television series with a 20-plus year run that scored 19 Daytime Emmy nominations and 14 awards. And it was all created with that signature warmth, the thoughtful nature, the fearless drive, and the eye toward inviting design that she had so carefully curated all those years." This picture shows her with Jeffrey. He's home for the weekend, and she has served him his favorite meal, which is her roast chicken with a little lemon butter broccoli on the side and roasted potatoes. It's what he always wants her to fix for him when he has been gone away from her for a time. Their net worth is $60 million. Not bad, not bad. She says in her memoir, "People are always surprised when I say that cooking is hard for me, but I'm not a trained professional. I've just done more cooking than most home cooks, and I've learned by doing. I'm always making something different, and each recipe has its own set of variables, including the ingredients. I have to think about every ingredient every time, and I'm a perfectionist with high expectations, so if the result is anything less than perfect, it's a total disaster to me. Cooking is like shooting at a moving target. Of course it's hard." She also said, talking about her beloved Jeffrey, "Cooking is one of the great gifts you can give to those you love. It says, you're important enough to me to spend the time and effort to cook for you." A bit more trivia. A chef traditionally wears white because the chef of the first Prime Minister of France in 1815 believed that white was the most hygienic of all the colors. Historically, the taller the chef's hat, the more important or knowledgeable the chef. Today, most chef hats Lagasse's, for example, are about 9 to 12 inches tall. You know, Anna would be the first person to say she doesn't deserve a chef hat because, as she describes herself, she's just a home cook. Maybe so, but with the career that she developed, the talents that she exposed in herself, one would think she deserves one, and a mighty tall one at that. I hope you've enjoyed getting to know Anna and her darling Jeffrey as much as I've enjoyed researching them, finding about them myself. As Anna loves to say, how easy was that?